Hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Anne and today I'm going to give you my TBR for the Magical Readathon Spring Equinox Edition 2023. So basically my TBR for April. It's been a while since I filmed a TBR video or even made a TBR. I've been a bit more of a mood reader for the last couple of months, but the next edition of the Magical Readathon is almost here. And of course I'm participating. If you've been following my channel for a while, you know I always participate in the Magical Readathon. It's a very extensive readathon with a lot of world building and a lot of details that I'm not going to go into right now because G, who hosts this readathon, explains it all much better, and as it is her readathon. And she recently made a Magical Readathon 101 video, so if you want to know everything and be all caught up in as little time as possible, I'll leave the link to that video down below and up above, so you can watch that in case you still want to participate and want to know what this is all about. But basically, in a few sentences, the story of this readathon is that you attend a magical school in a magical land called Eldia. There's a lot of character building involved with this as well, if you want to. A lot of it is optional. But basically it revolves around reading prompts, just like any readathon. It takes place 2 times a year, in April and August usually, and there often are a couple of small readathons throughout the year as well, like a weekend or a week long. This is the second year that the readathon is taking place in this capacity, so this is the second year that I'll be attending Aurelium Academy. And this is also the second year that I'll be training to be a scribe. That's my story. I'm going to Aurelium Academy to become a scribe, and for that I have to follow courses in 5 different schools of magic in order to pass the readathon and make it to my next year at Aurelium Academy. So without further ado, let's just get into my TBR. I had a bit of a struggle while composing this TBR, so I've got a lot of books here and they are all options for the different prompts. I have 5 prompts to fulfill, but there are a few different books that I might want to read for these prompts. I am a bit intimidated by the prompts that I am required to fulfill for the spring equinox semester at Aurelium Academy, because they mean I have to read quite a few big books, and I haven't actually been reading that much lately. I have definitely been reading, but I've also been doing a lot of other things, and this TBR will require me to read quite a lot more in April than I did in the first 3 months of the year. So we'll see how that goes. And I might even do some vlogging, because I've been thinking that I'd really like to film a reading vlog again. Those are always fun, and it's been a very long time since I did so. So maybe look out for that. I don't know. I'm also going on holiday to Edinburgh in April, so I don't know how much reading I'll be able to get done there. There's a lot going on. We'll see how it goes. Let's just move on to the books. The first course I'll be taking is Elemental Studies, and the focus of the course for this semester is Botanic Controls, and because of that I have to read a book with flowers on the cover. And for this I have chosen Honey Girl by Morgan Rogers. I don't actually know a lot about this book. I took this book from the library because a friend of mine and the bookish Instagrammer Annick's Library has curated a shelf of books at my local library. I did that as well at the start of the year. I'll post a picture here because it was quite cool. We both got to curate a shelf in the library that other people necessarily walk by because it's very central in the library, and thus get to see our favorite books. And this is one of the books that Annick placed there. And I have been seeing this book around a lot. I know Annick really loves it. I've seen them talk about it on Instagram quite a few times, I think. But I don't really know that much. With her newly completed PhD in astronomy in hand, and then there's a sticker over the blurb, so that's nice, Grace goes on a girls' trip to Vegas to celebrate. She is a hard-working high achiever. She is not the kind of person who goes to Vegas and gets drunkenly married to a woman whose name she doesn't know, until she does exactly that. This one beautiful, spontaneous moment upends Grace's carefully laid life plans. Staggering under the weight of her parents' expectations, a struggling job market, and feelings of burnout, Grace flees her home in Portland for a summer in New York with a wife she barely knows. In New York, she's able to ignore all the constant questions about her future and falls hard for her creative and gorgeous wife, Yuki Yamamoto. But when reality comes crashing in, Grace must face that what she's been running from all along. The fears that make us human and the need for connection, especially when navigating the messiness of adulthood. That sounds really good. That wasn't really what I had in mind about this book. Somehow I thought it was more young adult. I don't know. but I'm very excited about that, so I'm looking forward to reading this. And this is actually the only prompt for which I only have one book. And you can see the flowers here, there in her hair. The next course I'm taking is Inscription, and the course focus of that is the glyph, I don't know, of flight. And because of that, I have to read a book from the highest shelf of my bookshelves. Now, I've already picked these books from the shelf, so you won't be sure that they are from my highest shelf, but they definitely are. And the thing is that I rearranged my shelves a little right before I took a look at these prompts. There were a lot of books that are high up on my TBR on the top of my shelf right before I took a look at this prompt. But because of the rearranging, when I took a look at it, there were only like 3 books I haven't read yet, and most of them are books that I've already read and don't really want to reread, and there's still a lot of space there for new books. So yeah, that was a bit of a bummer, but I did pick 2 books so that I have 2 options to choose from. And the first one is Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. This is also quite a big book because most of the books on there are quite big books. So I was kicking myself about that a little bit as well. This is first of all a really gorgeous book. I'm in love with how it looks. I bought this last year shortly after it came out mostly because it looked so pretty, but also because it sounded really good. This is a book about 2 kids who meet in a hospital gaming room in 1987. One is visiting her sister, the other is recovering from a car crash. The days and months are long there. Their love of video games becomes a shared world of joy, escape and fierce competition. But all too soon that time is over. When the pair spot each other 8 years later in a crowded train station, they are catapulted back to that moment. The spark is immediate, and together they get to work on what they love. Making games to delight, challenge and immerse players, finding an intimacy in digital worlds that eludes them in their real lives. Their collaborations make them superstars. This is the story of the perfect worlds Sadie and Sam build, the imperfect world they live in, and of everything that comes after success. Money, fame, duplicity, tragedy. That sounds really good to me, and I've seen so many raving reviews about this book, so I'm really excited to read this. But the problem with this is that it's quite big, and because there are some other quite big books on this TBR, I'm not entirely sure if I'll be able to get around to reading all of them. So I need some options here to get me through the month successfully, and because of that I've also chosen a book from the top shelf that would be a reread, and it is This Coven Won't Break by Isabel Sterling. This is the sequel to These Witches Don't Burn, and I've already read both of those, and I reread These Witches Don't Burn last year, but I didn't get around to my reread of This Coven Won't Break. And I really want to, and it's quite a quick read, and because I've already read this, it would probably be an even quicker read. These Witches Don't Burn is about a girl called Hannah, and she is a witch. She's an elemental witch, and people don't know that about her, apart from her coven, because it is very dangerous to be a witch and they are sworn to secrecy. Her coven is very tight, they are really a very close-knit family, so when things start going awry and there seems to be evidence that there is a blood witch in town, people are on high alert, especially after attacks happen. So when I read the first book for the first time, I was immediately enthralled. I thought it would be a bit of a palate cleanser in between other books, that it would be a light read, but I ended up really loving it. And I don't know if I would call these books favorites, but the fact that I'm rereading them says quite a lot already, because I don't reread that often. They are just really wonderful books about magic in the real world, and I love books about magic in the real world. I love elemental witches. It takes place in Salem, Massachusetts, so that's a really fun setting as well. But the first book got quite dark, and I wasn't expecting that. It had some really heartbreaking moments, and this book kind of continues on that. So I'm excited to reread it. I'm sad already about the sad moments that will happen, but I really love these books. So if I don't get around to Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, I'll definitely be excited to pick this up. The next course I'm taking is Spells and Incantations, and the focus for that course is the spell for magic missiles. And because of that, the reading prompt is a target length of between 389 and 415 pages. So that's quite specific, and I had to look through a few of my books to see if I had anything that fit that, but it is a length that occurs quite often in books. So I did find 2 books. Again, it's a book from my TBR and a reread. The book from my TBR is Songs in Ursa Major by Emma Brodie. When I first saw this in the bookshop, I thought, well, this looks like a clear ripoff of Daisy Jones and the Six, and I still kind of think that, but it also has had quite a few good reviews. so I came back from my initial impression a little bit. This takes place in the summer of 1969, and it's about Jane Quinn, who is in a band, and when she steps barefoot onto the main stage at Island Folk Festival, her golden hair glinting, her voice soaring into the summer dusk, a star is born, and so is a passionate love story. Her band hits the road with Jesse Reed, the musician whose bright blue eyes are setting hearts alight everywhere. And then there's some more on the back, but it does sound a little bit like Daisy Jones and the Six might have inspired it, or maybe the marketing behind the book just thought we'll go with a Daisy Jones and the Six route. I think that's probably it. But I do love love stories. I do love books about music in the 70s or late 60s. So I'm excited to read this, but again, it's not the shortest of books, although the letters are quite big. Yeah, I think I could easily read this now that I'm looking at how the pages look. But nevertheless, I wanted another option, and that's because I really actually kind of want to reread The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. I talk about these books in almost every video I make, so you'll probably know that the Wayfarer series is my favorite series of all time. And I've never reread the first book after reading it in 2019, I think. And so I think I really should, because I love these books. They make my heart sing. I think they're beautiful. They're lovely. I could do with a bit of comfort right now. So I think I might just reread this one, although I'm also excited to read Songs in Ursa Major. So I don't know yet, but the Wayfarer series is a sci-fi series set in space, and this series comprises 4 books that are all companions to one another. They take place in the same universe. Some characters reoccur in the different books, but they're all separate stories. And this is the first book, and it is about the crew of the Wayfarer, which is a spaceship that has seen better days, but then they get a big job, namely to build a hyperspace tunnel at a remote place in space, I think. I'm not entirely sure. It's been a while since I read it. I just know that I love the characters. Becky Chambers is the best at writing characters, at relationships, at creating a new culture from scratch that takes things from our own culture and makes them better. These are cozy sci-fi books and I really love them, so I really want to reread this. We'll see which way I go in my wrap-up, I guess, or in the reading vlogs I may or may not make. For the next prompt, I again have 2 books, and the course is lore and the focus is The Legend of Dia. I'm not sure what that is, but it sounds fun. And the prompt is to read a book with a map, and like I said, I've got 2 books. The first that I think I will choose is The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin. N.K. Jemisin is the author of the Broken Earth trilogy, which I finished last year and absolutely adore. This is one of the best books and series I have ever read in sci-fi and fantasy, but also just in general. So definitely go check that out if you want to know what that's about. But this is the first book in her new series, which takes place in New York. And the premise of this new series is that every great city has a soul. Some are ancient as myths, others are as new and destructive as children. New York, she's got 6. And all 6 will be called to arms in the greatest battle the city has ever fought. So that sounds really fun and exciting. And this is the map in the book, which is also really fun. It's a bit different than the usual map you find in fantasy books. I'm really excited to read this. It is quite a big book because, of course, usually books that have maps in them are quite big books. It's over 400 pages. But I love N.K. Jemisin's writing, so hopefully I'll get around to this. But the other option I have is also a book I really want to read. This time it isn't a reread, but it is King of Scars by Leigh Bardugo. This is a book that's part of the Grishaverse, so Shadow and Bone and Six of Crows, but it is a part of a new duology as well. This came out a couple of years ago and has been on my shelves ever since. The second book has already come out, so the duology is already completed, but I still have to read it, and because of that it's also on my list of 10 books I have to read in 2023. So that's why I kind of feel like I should be reading it next month, because it also has a map, maybe even 2. No, just the 1. But it's also a very big book. It's over 500 pages, so I don't know if it's a good idea to make this part of this readathon and put that kind of pressure on it. Maybe I should just read it later and take the time that I need when I don't have all these other big books I also have to read. This makes it sound as if this is not fun, but I really love a readathon, but I also want to not make things impossible for myself. And then the last prompt is a bit of a more difficult one in terms of logistics. I'm not entirely sure yet how I'm going to do this, but the School of Magic is restoration and the course focus is oculi cures. And the prompt for that is to take a couple of books you want to read, close your eyes, shuffle them and point. So I kind of wanted to do that with the help of my boyfriend, but he's not home right now and I wanted to film this video, so I'm just going to figure it out on my own. First, let me show you the 4 books I've chosen for this. The first one is Lolly Willows by Sylvia Townsend Warner, which is also on my list of 10 books I have to read in 2023. That also goes for A Drop of Patience by William Melvin Kelly. And the other 2 books I have chosen are The Word for World is Forest by Ursula K. Le Guin, and This is How You Lose the Time War by Amal El Mokhtar and Max Gladstone. You might notice that all of these books are quite small, because I figured let's not make things harder than they have to be, again. So now I'll just kind of shuffle them and hope I won't be able to feel which book is which book. I'll close my eyes, shuffle them, and the book that ends up in the front will be the book that I read. Okay, so this is the one I'll be reading. Incidentally, I think this will also be the most difficult read, so that's fun. I was kind of hoping it would be this one, and I kind of could feel which book was which book, but I decided to just stop at a certain point and not think too much about it. This is How You Lose the Time War. What I've heard about this book, it's really a Marmite book. Some people adore it and some people absolutely hate it. So I hope I will fall in the adore it camp. This is, as far as I know, a sci-fi book that tells the story of a war that's taking place across different points in time, and it's about 2 people from other sides of the war that are communicating with one another by leaving things at certain points. I'm already confused and I haven't even started reading it yet. I'll read you the blurb because this is not working. Among the ashes of a dying world, an agent of the commandant finds a letter. It reads, "Burn before reading." Okay, I'm already intrigued. Red and Blue, 2 rival agents hellbent on securing the best possible future for their warring factions, strike up an unlikely correspondence. But what started as a taunt, a battlefield boast, grows into something more. Something epic and romantic. Something that could change the past and the future. The discovery of their bond will mean their deaths. There's still a war going on, and someone has to win that war. That's how wars work, right? Co-written by 2 award-winning writers, This is How You Lose the Time War is an epic love story spanning time and space. Okay, that sounds amazing. It's still not a lot clearer how this works, but I'm intrigued. I'm now very excited to read this. I should really find out more about the books that I'm buying. But yeah, this will definitely be fun. It's a short book, it's not even 200 pages. I've heard that it's quite confusing, but I kind of like a confusing book. So yeah, excited to read this. And that's it for my TBR. I have gone on talking for almost half an hour, even though I figured I'd do this in 10 minutes. So that's great. Have fun editing, Anne. In the comment down below, let me know what are your reading plans for April. Are you participating in a magical readathon or in another readathon, or just mood reading through life, because that's a lot of fun as well. Please like this video if you like it, subscribe to my channel if you want to see more of me in the future, and have a wonderful day. Bye!